Hello and welcome to our third session of Screen Reader Savvy. In this session, we're going to focus mainly on NVDA or non-visual desktop access. So let's go ahead and get started. There are some important NVDA commands that I want you to be aware of before we proceed. The NVDA key or the modifier key can be the insert, the caps lock key, the number pad insert key, or all of those. Those can be modified in the settings menu. As we proceed through this session, I'm going to refer to the NVDA key as all of those at one point or another, but it will be clear what I'm referencing, so don't worry too much about that. The next thing I want to talk about is how to change some of the NVDA behavior, like the speaking rate, the pitch, the volume, things like that. To pick one of those, you're going to hold down the NVDA key, Control, and then you're going to tap your right and left arrows to navigate among those. So you're going to hold down that NVDA key and Control and use those right and left arrows to choose which one of the aforementioned items, like rate, speech, volume, etc., that I want to change. Once focus is reached, keep those keys pressed down, that NVDA key and Control, and use your up or down arrow key to change the setting. For example, if you're focused on speaking rate, to increase the speaking rate, you're going to press the up arrow while having those other keys pressed down, or your down arrow while having those other keys pressed. It's important to note that having the ability to hold those keys down and not lift them during this process is important, but not integral. There are other ways to adjust these settings. This is not the only way. We'll hit on those other ways as this presentation continues. Let's take a look at the NVDA interface. NVDA always runs from the system tray. This is the same area that your Windows clock is located in. And the image on the left is what the context menu of NVDA looks like when you call it up. To access the NVDA menu, you're going to use NVDA plus the letter N. So caps lock plus N or insert plus N. And then on the bottom of the screen here is just a reminder that the NVDA key can be any one of the things that we mentioned earlier in this presentation. The menus are navigated using the arrow keys and are pretty easy to get around. Also, I want to mention, because NVDA runs from the system tray, it is not in the tab order when you navigate between open programs. It also isn't by default located in the taskbar unless you pin it there. It's important to note the difference just because of how the interface works. Most settings in NVDA need to be adjusted in the Settings Center. To navigate to the Settings Center, open the Preferences menu from within the NVDA interface and select Settings. To open the General Settings, the shortcut key is NVDA plus Control plus G. That will open up the General Settings and will place your cursor in the combination box at the very top, not in the categories list, and we'll talk about that in just a second. It's important to know where your focus will land when you open these settings because it's going to vary a little bit, and knowing where you're going to land will help you decide how to proceed. If you open the NVDA settings from the menus as shown in the previous slide, focus will be in what's called the categories list. That is physically located on the left side of the dialog box. It really does look like a list. And the first item is general, second item is speech, the third item is Braille, and you can find out what those are when you open up NVDA and explore that for yourself. Depending on which one of those categories is in focus will determine what is in the other pane, which is about 2/3-ish of the dialog box. Right now, general settings are in focus. And to navigate that dialog, I would use my tab or shift tab to go backwards if necessary. And to check or uncheck boxes, I would use my space bar, or to use the combination boxes or to the combo boxes to choose something from within there, you're going to use your up and down arrows. And then to select that option for the combo box and move on, just tab to a different area. You can press enter to exit at any time. NVDA also has specific speech settings, including setting up the synthesizer, a voice, adjusting the rate, and the amount of punctuation that NVDA reads. Remember how we talked about you don't need to hold down those keys if you are not able to do two-handed key commands at one time. This is the area where you would adjust your rate and your pitch and your volume. You would get into these dialog boxes and adjust it there rather than using those shortcut keys. You can get directly to the speech settings at any time by pressing NVDA plus Control plus V. Again, you'll navigate these dialogues by using the tab key, the shift tab key, space to check and uncheck boxes, etc. NVDA also has specific Braille settings, and this allows the user to add a variety of Braille displays to their computer and use it with NVDA. Just a quick note though, NVDA being a free and open source screen reader does not by default have a lot of Braille display settings preloaded into it. So it's going to be even more important for you to navigate to a website and download those drivers to use with NVDA and your Braille display. Again, the manufacturer's website is the best place to do that. You might also be able to get some help depending on where you purchased your Braille display by calling like the support line and getting some help with getting those drivers installed that way. In either case, those need to be installed before we proceed to this step. To get directly to the Braille settings at any time, press Insert plus Control plus A, and the navigation commands still apply. Remember, when you press that command, Insert Control A, the focus will be taken directly to that first item in your settings pane area. In this case, it's Braille display. Which one is going to come up when you start the screen reader? It won't be in that categories list because you have used that specific screen reader command to launch the Braille settings. There's also a keyboard command to jump directly to NVDA's keyboard settings dialog. That command is Insert plus Control plus K. It's this dialog box that has the ability to change that modifier key. As you can see, if you are looking at the screen, the options are all checked in this screenshot. Caps lock, number pad insert, and insert are all checked. Any or all of those can be checked. Any combination, it doesn't matter. Another thing to keep in mind is the typing echo, which is what NVDA says after a user has typed a character or series of characters. Speak typed characters in this particular example is turned off, but speak typed words is turned on. This setting is adjusted a little differently than JAWS, where you cycle between speak characters, speak words, speak characters and words, or off. There are other settings here, but I'll permit you to explore those independently. It's a great way to get to learn your screen reader and to explore navigation of dialog boxes with your students. The Tools menu can be accessed by pressing NVDA plus N to get to the interface, arrow down to Tools, and then from there you can access things like the speech viewer, the Braille viewer, and the add-on console. This is also where you would create a USB copy or a portable copy of NVDA that can be inserted into any PC and make it talk. And when I say any PC, I don't literally mean any PC. There are some institutions and individuals who prefer to not have their USB ports open to this sort of program. And I don't mean a screen reader in particular, I mean a USB stick. They can carry a lot of viruses or things that maybe people don't want their computers exposed to. So you may not be able to launch this tool once you get to the computer that you want to use, but that doesn't mean that you can't create the portable copy. It's just a caveat to let people know, hey, just because you have this portable copy, it doesn't mean that the PC you go to is going to let you use it. When in doubt, access the help menu. This area is easy to get to, just NVDA plus the letter N, and then jump down to help with the letter H. There are a lot of options under the help menu, including a link to the online user guide, which will open in a browser, a command quick reference key, which will again also open in a browser, and all of this stuff will, by the way, open in your default browser. You have the what's new, the NVDA website, all of that stuff. Other things in the help menu include checking for updates if you believe that your version is behind. You can manually check. You can also open the welcome dialog, which gives you some of those options, such as start this dialog when NVDA starts. It's also another place where you can change that modifier key. One thing that is a great option that's also available with JAWS that we talked about was using that insert plus the number 1 to turn on keyboard help. While in this mode, when a key combination is pressed, NVDA will repeat it and describe what the action does without actually executing the command. Again, this is a great teaching tool for students. It's also great to kind of explore your keyboard if you don't know precisely what each key does. Sometimes you might have a new laptop or things like that, and you can kind of explore the keyboard and kind of see where the lay of the land is, kind of gives you an idea. Like JAWS, NVDA has a pronunciation dictionary. To get to the pronunciation dictionary, press NVDA plus the letter N, P for preferences, D for punctuation dictionary, and then you're going to press D for the default dictionary, even though that's not shown here specifically, because honestly, the screenshot was a little too wide to fit here, but that's why you have the directions, right? The pronunciation dictionary for NVDA is, like its other dialog boxes, significantly simpler than JAWS. There are commands that interface with it. Alt-D will navigate you to the dictionary entries list, which will list any entries you have created specifically for the pronunciation dictionary. Alt plus A will add an entry. Alt plus R will remove an entry that is in focus, and Alt plus E will edit an entry that's in focus. Again, the user can also navigate the dialog box using your Tab and Shift-Tab keys if you don't happen to remember these commands to add or remove or edit entries. Shown here is an example of what a new entry would look like in a pronunciation dictionary. Once you open a new entry or add a new entry to the pronunciation dictionary, focus is going to be in an edit field called pattern. The pattern is the word, and we use the word because that's what normally we're changing, but it can be a pattern of any letters or numbers as NVDA would encounter them. So that's why they call it a pattern. It's kind of different, but it's accurate. So you would enter that how it would appear normally in a website, in a document, however. Pressing Tab will take you to the replacement field. This is where you would phonetically spell out how you would like NVDA to pronounce what you've entered in the pattern dialog. It's going to take you a couple of times. It might take you longer than you would like it to. to phonetically recreate how you would like the screen reader to say the word. There are no shortcuts to get it to kind of repeat the pattern word and the replacement the way there are in JAWS, so you're going to need to tab and shift tab between those boxes. When finished, you're going to want to press tab to go to the comment area. This is a great way to classify why the correction was needed. In this case, I've put WCBVI in the pattern field, and I've spelled it out in the replacement field with spaces between each letter. And in the comment, I put abbreviation. I want NVDA to say WCBVI when it sees this combination rather than WSFI, which is what it says. The next area is the case-sensitive dialog. Type? Well, usually anywhere works fine, but other choices are whole word or regular expression. I haven't had a need to use anything other than anywhere before, but it could happen. If a letter combination falls within a word or within a root, you may need to make some adjustments here. Here are some key points about the pronunciation dictionary that are important to remember. The dictionary has to be saved before exiting by navigating to the OK button. Until the dictionary is exited, the changes will not be implemented. So if you have the dictionary open and want to see how things sound in your browser, it's not going to take effect until that dictionary is closed. And it's really a very interesting effect because it doesn't save to the screen reader. So it's really important to know. One final thing is that there are 3 dictionary types. There's the default dictionary, which applies all the rules in the dictionary in all contexts. There's the voice dictionary. Rules in this dictionary only apply to the specific synthesizer being used at the moment. If you're using Microsoft David or Reed or whatever synthesizer you might have downloaded from the internet, the rules only apply to that synthesizer. And that means if you change it, my WCBVI might not pronounce the way I want to. The third type is temporary. Rules here only apply until NVDA restarts. We've talked a little bit about creating a portable copy. To create a portable copy of NVDA, you're going to press NVDA plus the letter N to open your context menu, press T for Tools, and then arrow down to Create Portable Copy. Once you've indicated you want to create a portable copy, the Create Portable Copy of NVDA dialog comes up. To create that portable copy, you need to select where you want that portable copy to go. So you need to choose the drive. So if you go down to press tab until you hear browse, and then choose that removable drive that you have hopefully remembered to insert at this point, and that's where the portable copy will be created. There are 2 other options here. Pressing tab will take you down to copy user configuration, which would allow you to take your user configuration with you, like your dictionary or your speech settings, all of those things, or not. If it's for somebody else, maybe leave it unchecked. The second checkbox is start the new portable copy after creation. That would mean that it would shut down the installed version of NVDA and start up the portable copy. And this would be necessary, or it might be something you want to check if you didn't have that first checkbox checked. Loading the portable copy can be a little bit tricky because it's going to depend on the machine you're using to launch it. When the flash drive is inserted, Windows Explorer often launches automatically. If it does not, you can press Windows key plus the letter E to open Windows Explorer. You can often press N or Enter to navigate and launch NVDA, but frankly, a lot is going to depend on the settings of your PC, and you may need to start Microsoft Narrator to start NVDA. It's a little convoluted, but that's what needs doing. You may need somebody with you to assist you in starting NVDA for the first time and installing it or using it, especially if it's at someone's house or at a location other than your home. So it's going to vary heavily, so please don't use this as a guide. This is just a simple example of things that may happen. I know we looked at the help menu before, but there are a lot of ways to get help in NVDA. We talked about the input help mode before. To launch and the help options, we also talked about these as well. But I wanted to cycle back to it. Once you navigate to the help menu, if you choose to open the user guide and the quick command summary, we talked about that this would open in a web browser. Table navigation commands are necessary, or well, almost strictly necessary to navigate these areas because you need to know how to navigate a table area in order to read it. So the commands you're most likely going to need are T, pressing just T to move to the next table, holding down your Alt and Control, and your up and down arrow will move you up or down by a row. Alt, Control, and right or left arrow will move you left or right by column. As previously mentioned, there are other specific NVDA commands you might want to know. Speaking typed characters can be turned on and off by using Insert plus the number row 2. Speaking typed words can be turned on and off using Insert plus the number row 3. That's different than JAWS, as we previously talked about, because JAWS, you cycle through the options using one key command. In NVDA, each one of those ideas is controlled individually. Here's a really cool one, is speak command keys. If you enter a command, you can have NVDA repeat it before it executes it. Pressing Insert plus 4 will turn that on and off. To exit NVDA, should you wish to do so, Insert or NVDA plus the letter Q for quit. Punctuation that NVDA speaks can be changed, and that can be cycled through by pressing NVDA plus the letter P. Mouse tracking is interesting. It can be good if you have residual vision and you want to know what's underneath the mouse. It can also be super, super annoying if you are a screen reader user and bump your mouse and your NVDA just starts talking. That can be turned on and off by using the Insert key or NVDA plus the letter M for mouse. In session 1, we looked at one way to adjust the system volume using NVDA. Earlier in this session, we looked at how to adjust NVDA's volume of the screen reader itself. Now we're going to take a look at a second way to adjust the system volume or the volume control of your Windows machine. Press Windows plus B to bring focus to the system tray, which is, again, that lower tray area in the lower right-hand area of your screen. Use your left and right arrow keys to locate the volume control, or it might call it speakers. The user is probably going to hear NVDA announce the output device, whatever that might be, followed by a percentage. The percentage is kind of buried in there, so you might have to listen kind of carefully to hear it, navigate away from it, and then navigate back just to kind of listen again. Once you're sure that that's where your focus is, press Enter. Then what's going to come up is your quick setting area. You're going to use Tab to locate the volume slider. And you're going to use your arrow keys to adjust that as desired and press Enter to confirm. This area, by the way, also controls your internet, like you can pick which Wi-Fi network you're joining. You can look at Bluetooth, turn on and off, your airplane mode, and your screen brightness and other things if you desire to do so. And that'll do it. I hope this has been helpful for you, and we'll see you next time.